What's up, people, and welcome to an update video on the Rekieta situation. And yeah, he is not looking good unless you're Viva and Barnes, who seem to be the only lawyers from the law tube sphere that are actually backing him up at this point. A lot of stuff has come out about him, and I'm gonna do this video from the perspective of if this were to go to trial and I was, selected as a juror. And from what I've seen so far, based on the warrant, the description of the arrest, everything, it is not good. It's really not good. And I said it in the last video about this, about how addiction can completely change a person. And I think that's the issue here. And you don't really need to make up a whole lot of details like you see a lot of the commentary people doing, where they're just embellishing things and exaggerating things. All you have to do is go off the facts, or at least what we know to be the facts, based on the information that Kiwi Farms has dug up, of all places. And yeah, you can just look at that and go, okay, this is not good, right? And at this point, if I were sitting in a trial that has some of the details about this, there's one of two things. One being, okay, how long has this person behaved this way? Knowing that he and his wife and who he associates with has an addiction to, obviously, coke, among other things. They found cocaine, they found ketamine. There was, what some are calling hearsay about Nick having track marks on his arm, so there was speculation that he was, mainlining heroin or something. But of course, they didn't mention any needles in the search warrant. And we don't know anything, being the audience. So you could see this gradual shift, as time went by, in terms of his behavior and his looks, his scheduling, and you could kind of go, all right, something's up, right? And if I were sitting there, and I know that this guy goes to church, I know that he has kids, there's no prior history of anything like this, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to look at it and go, okay, when did this guy get hooked on drugs or whatever, alcohol, and how long has it been affecting him this way? Because this didn't seem to be obviously he's been drinking for a very long time, but in terms of the severity of, his mannerisms and behavior and everything else, that's fairly recent. This isn't something that's been going on for a very long time. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this isn't, his wife is involved, his girlfriend or nanny or whatever you want to call it, April, is involved. Do you really want to be that person that goes, all right, the kids are absolutely not safe with these people? And of course, they tacked on the child endangerment charges and the neglect charges, due to there being drugs in the house with the kids, and that's absolutely warranted, along with firearms. And there's a fine line between neglect and abuse. So we're looking at a lot of different things here as an audience. We're going, okay, was he abusing his children? Or was he and his wife so deep in addiction that they just didn't really care anymore, right? Both things are bad, but you can love your children and be neglectful. Hell, you can love your children and be abusive. And it's one of those things where, it's coming out that the kids were saying, oh, that they hadn't eaten, that, they weren't being fed, and that they've been wearing the same clothes for days at a time, and that they were smelling because they hadn't taken a shower or a bath. And it's one of those things where, okay, was Nick and his wife and his girlfriend or whatever you want to call her on this bender for so long that they just didn't look at the kids for 4 days? You know, what kind of situation were the kids in prior to this? And it's not good either way. I'm not trying to justify anything. This is just looking at it objectively of, do these children need to stay with their parents, or do they need to be removed permanently? And the way that Rekieta is going at this point, where he's just running his mouth and he's talking to people in DMs and saying he's going to go back to streaming and this, that, and the other. You know, I said that unless you want to change and unless you want to get help in that last video, you know, people aren't going to do it. They're just going to crash into the fucking wall, and that's that. You know, you can't force anybody to do anything ever. You know, unless you're a communist. But it's one of those things where, what is he going to do? You know, if the courts, you know, throw the book at him and his wife, and then now the kids don't have their parents, then, you know, what good does that do? Whereas, you know, if Nick or his wife show some sort of willingness to change, you know, to show some contrition and be like, all right, I fucked up, I have a problem, you know, I'm willing to get help, I'm willing to throw all this stuff away to keep my kids. That's obviously the outcome that most people are hoping for. That's the outcome that I'm hoping for. That, you know, he sees the light and goes back to being, you know, a church going guy that, you know, drinks occasionally and, you know, kind of enjoys things. Whereas now he's this, for lack of a better term, lolcow. I mean, the guy's Kiwi Farms thread has blown the fuck up over the last few days, and now it's to the point where, you know, he's going to be scrutinized forever now. Like, the internet never forgets, right? And he, to be fair, he's one of the people that brought in, you know, kind of formed and created the LawTube sphere. I mean, a lot of these lawyers that are currently talking about him, you know, nobody knew who they were until they showed up on the Rekieta Law channel. And, you know, I can kind of respect the ones that are like, look, I want him to get help, I want him to get better, I want this to have a positive outcome, but I'm still going to talk about it and give my analysis of things, which is, you know, I have no stake in it. Some of them do, because they know him personally, they've met him, but us, the viewer, it's just, this doesn't affect us one way or the other outside of, you know, content, right? And I wanted to kind of go over this because I was kind of on the fence of, okay, he has a substance abuse problem, and, you know, maybe he can get help and maybe things can get better for him. And now that all this stuff is coming out about the kids, it's like, you're telling me that this guy and his wife were so deep in it that they forgot to feed their children, that they forgot to bathe their children, that they forgot to, you know, take care of them like they were doing? Which goes back to the initial statement that I made about how long has this been going on? You know, were they in immediate danger at any given time? What sort of conditions were they living in? Which I think it said in that report that the house was cluttered with clothes and all kinds of stuff everywhere, and that one of his kids went to what I believe was an officer or somebody that was there during when the search was executed, and telling them that she needs clothes. You know, that's bad. And I can't think of a single jury, if this were to go to trial, that wouldn't just be like, you know, you're fucked, because that's definitely gonna sway a person. I mean, it swayed me hearing about the kids, where I was like, Jesus, you know, how does this guy go from doing conventions and being, you know, this huge YouTuber to wanting to only do drugs and stream at midnight and forget about his kids? And there's a lot of things we don't know. I think people are trying to get the body cam footage, but it's it's bad all around. And I can see why a lot of the people that are his quote unquote friends are saying that this doesn't look good, because even from a layman, somebody that's not a lawyer, just an average person looking at this, it looks awful. I mean, the dude obviously has an ego. He obviously has a drug problem. He obviously doesn't think he did anything wrong. You know, he wants to represent his wife and the girlfriend in court. And, you know, I don't think he's at rock bottom. Rock bottom is when you get to the point where you're going, I am completely done with all this shit. I'm going to change and I'm going to fix things. And I don't think he's there yet. And I have a funny feeling that things are going to get worse for him. At least in the not so distant future. Because he can't seem to keep his mouth shut. He doesn't think he did anything wrong. You've got people enabling him, going, no, you're in the right. You know, you had a right to do this, and, you know, yeah, go get him. Now, if it were me, if I were a friend, if I were a family member, I'd be like, you need to shut the fuck up, lay low, throw everything that shouldn't be in the house out, throw anybody that shouldn't be in the house out, spend time with your kids, lay low, only talk to your lawyer. That's it. And I don't think that's going to happen. So, just a quick update. I know not everybody is as invested in this as I am, which I'm not even that invested in it. It's more of a morbid curiosity how somebody can fall so far so quick because of drugs. And it you know, it happens every day. It just so happens this guy is a big YouTuber, but I mean, it happens every single day. So this is nothing new to the police. This is nothing new to the courts. It's just, you know, the shiny new internet thing at this point, because, you know, people somewhat know who he is. So thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time, don't do what this guy is doing.